I'm Steve in Manhattan.
Okay, this
Steve
is
in
Steve.
Manhattan. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, this is also about the Holocaust, and my concern is that there may be a contradiction between how you treat Israel and Palestine and how you treat the Holocaust. Because in addition to the 6 million who were killed during the Nazi times, there were 8 million gypsies, homosexuals, political enemies also killed in the same manner, in the same way, in the same event during the Holocaust. And I think they should be considered part of the Holocaust. And maybe part of the reason there is, number one, in Israel, and the Jews have tried to choose to keep themselves separate and then are seen separate, is that even in the Holocaust, where there are 14 million people who were killed that way, they're singled out and feel that they have a right to be singled out. And I'm Jewish, and certainly that needs to be seen very directly that way. But there were 8 million other people who were killed in the same manners that need to be remembered and are not. So it develops a bad attitude about how you see Jews among all people.
Well, they are remembered, the others who were
They're not in any of the Holocaust museums.
Well, I'm all in favor of that and would be happy to support it. They are remembered by you and they are remembered by me. But there is a difference. The 6 million Jews that were massacred in the Holocaust were part of a project which was clearly stated in advance and was in an advanced stage of execution to eliminate from the face of the earth every Jewish person.
That was true also.
So that the Jews would cease to exist. The same was not true of homosexuals. For example, a very large number of homosexuals were themselves members of the Nazi party. The brown shirts were notoriously sexually involved, not just with each other, but with minors, and in all sorts of very, very difficult to understand sexual practices. So homosexuals were persecuted in the Holocaust, and they were given pink stars to wear upon their prison uniforms. Communists were, of course, also singled out, and social democrats and trade unionists and gypsies and disabled people, physically disabled, mentally disabled.
Mentally ill.
They were. But they were victims of mass murder. They were not victims of a systematic attempt at genocide, systematic attempt to wipe them as a people off the face of the earth. I understand what you're saying, and I understand the abuse of the Holocaust that the Zionist leaders have practiced. Of course I understand that.
My point is that it's not just the Zionist leaders. It ends up being used in the opposite way by coming out in that kind of reflection. By singling them out and labeling them, it allows a singling out that then carries over into many other ways and continues to promote the sense of isolation and need for isolation that is often felt by the Jews because they've been singled out and attacked, and that creates a response and an ongoing imagery that can be used negatively both ways.
Yeah, well, no doubt it is, but that's not a reason for us saying that the Holocaust with a capital H, in which 6 million Jews perished, and all Jews would have perished if the war had gone on long enough, and if the fascists, not just German fascists, but other alliance fascists and the Axis powers, I mean, in places like Lithuania, for example, the fascists didn't even wait for the German army to arrive before they started murdering their Jews in their own societies. So all Jews would have been massacred.
Well, that assumes that the Nazis would have won the war and controlled the world.
No, if it had continued, if the war had continued.
And
indeed,
they
would have. Ironically, they would have won the war if it were not for the sacrifice of the then USSR and the then Red Army,
yes,
which tore the guts out of the fascist war machine, and which is itself completely disregarded in popular narrative
absolutely
of the history of the period.
Absolutely. And so I say that because I think it's important, and it is incumbent upon us not to just fall into the common use, because the common use projects a bias that continues in many ways. just like you say, the USSR is not. There's never been a film about what really happened on the Eastern Front, as it was called, and in Stalingrad,
or the 20+ million Soviet citizens who lost their lives.
And so it's incumbent upon us to not fall into the common usages which propagate that, but actually go beyond it and put the larger context to try to educate people.
I'll go with you on that. We need to go beyond it. I agree with you on that.
We have to use the Holocaust for all 14 million, and you can emphasize.
First of all, I've got to say, brother, I don't recognize that number. I don't recognize that number. You're using that number. I'm not endorsing it, but definitely millions of others also perished
in the same way,
in the same period, and because of not what they had done, but who they were.
That's right.
Homosexuals are born as homosexuals.
That's right.
Gypsies are born as gypsies, and they were eliminated.
Mentally ill people are mentally ill not because of what they do, but because
they were eliminated
they
because of what they were, not what they had done, for no reason other than what they were.
That's
Homosexuals were murdered in large numbers by the Nazis because they had the birthright of being born as of homosexuals. That's a fact. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the intention of the Nazis, and which was achieved in huge proportion, was to physically eliminate from the earth the Jewish people. And that, I believe, was definitely the crime of the 20th century, and maybe the greatest crime in human history.